welcome back to my channel. My name is Misty, and today we're going to talk about toddlers. Now, toddlers is a hot topic, not only in general, like I hear a lot of conversation in the homeschooling world around toddlers, but also I hear a lot of toddler talk coming to me from you all that are watching. And so I figured it's time to start creating some toddler related videos to kind of share some of the experience I have with toddlers and to help you guys kind of sort through what to do with your toddler. I think it's so common for us all to be like, okay, I have a toddler and I'm homeschooling. I have older kids. What do I do with the toddler when I'm homeschooling the older kids? Or am I homeschooling the toddler? Am I not homeschooling the toddler? And what does the toddler even know? What do they need to learn? How do I figure this all out? Right? These are common questions, especially for the toddler age. And so today we're going to start the conversation around toddlers. And before we do that, I do want to say that if you are a homeschooling parent looking to find more information regarding homeschooling with a toddler or any other homeschooling early childhood type videos in general, this channel here, make sure you're subscribed because I talk all about these type of things. And the like button lets me know that this is a video that was useful for you, whether that gave you new information, you found it entertaining, or relatable, whatever it may be. So make sure you hit the like button to let me know you want to see more content like this. All right, let's start talking about toddlers. And I think that today, this is specifically, I guess, addressing those that have older kids and are homeschooling with a toddler in tow. But also, this could be useful for any of you that have a toddler and younger kids or just a toddler. So it doesn't matter what family dynamic you're looking at, this video will be helpful for you no matter how many kids you have, if it's just a toddler or more. I do want to address what to do with your toddler when homeschooling, but I think that that is a very loaded question or a loaded thing to talk about. So I'm just going to kind of break up different videos about it. And so this one does touch on that. I don't share what I do specifically with my toddler in this video, but I talk about some of the reasoning of why we do what we do before I get into any type of this is what we do videos. So many people are unsure what to do with toddlers when homeschooling. Toddlers are at a very unique point of brain function and of learning. So it's a really unique point of development. They want to be able to communicate, but they're currently learning language, so communication isn't necessarily the best, and you know, sometimes they have those meltdowns because of it. A lot of times toddlers want to be independent, but a lot of times they don't have the proper amount of motor skill, both gross and fine motor skill, to be independent, so therefore they're still dependent, which makes them throw more fits. They have very big emotions, but they lack the ability for the brain to cope with those feelings just yet. They're at this really unique point where they're transitioning from side-by-side play, which is where they'll play kind of in the same vicinity as another kid, but there's not really interaction going on. And they're switching from that side-by-side play to the more interactive play, which can be very interesting, especially with their lack of social skills and knowing how to properly do that. I think that with all of these new things going on in their brain, right? There's all these new things going on, and that can make it extremely difficult for homeschooling. Well, it can make it difficult for family dynamics in general, but it does slow down the process of homeschooling, right? We have to constantly take these breaks to stop and help the toddler because in a way, the world revolves around that toddler because they are needing so much help compared to the older kids or even infants, which we'll talk about soon. You may also feel like you're trying to teach them, but they aren't really showing any interest in learning, or they're refusing to learn, or they're not comprehending what you're teaching them, and things are just not connecting in their brain. And that doesn't make you a bad teacher, by the way. I feel like that's a feeling that creeps in a lot of times. You're not a bad teacher, but you are pushing things probably that don't need to be pushed. So here's the truth. Toddlers are always learning. Always, at all times. Toddlers are at this really interesting age where their mind is definitely always a mind at work. So when you hear mind at work, you're probably wondering, like, what do you mean by that? What is a mind at work? So a mind at work has a lot to do with neuroscience, and basically that's the study of the brain and the nervous system and their interactions. And so obviously it's important to know that because when we're talking about a mind at work, when we're talking about a toddler and the frustrations and the confusion that comes along with teaching one, we need to understand that it all boils down to neuroscience and understanding where their brain is in development. But also another important thing to note is I had read an article by a doctor, and he said something that it stood out to me and I think sums up in simple terms what we need to understand about a mind at work. And the important thing to remember is that a mind at work is the product of a brain activity when it is animated with life. You know, it's a really frustrating age to work with, but you need to think that at this point in their life, their brain is fully animated and coming to life with so many brand new things to learn. The outside world is coming into their brain and processing, firing off new neurons, building new bridges, right? So their brain is constantly animated with life going on and processing it. Now, your older kids have had that chance to kind of process that animated brain working with life. So I like to look at it as mind bridges. So basically, their brain is constantly building on that next building block to create a bridge to connect whatever it is that they're trying to figure out between the real world and their brain and how they process it. And when it comes to your older kids, they've lived long enough to have their brain kind of get into the motions and get used to working on building those bridges. And so their bridges become a lot more easy to work with, especially because socially they've developed enough brain bridges. And then also with infants, it's just a lot simpler, right? All they want to do is be clean, fed, sleep, and hold them. That's all they want at the end of the day. I mean, there are obviously exceptions that make it more complicated, but at the end of the day, that's what we're focusing on when it comes to infants. So life is a lot simpler. And when they get to that age of now they're up and walking and they're beyond crawling, there's just something that happens where their brain becomes so much more complex with all these new things they're able to experience. So now their brain at this toddler age is becoming a lot more sophisticated, and it's changing those family dynamics. And like I said, the learning process as well is changing and kind of revolving around that toddler. So that I feel like that's why toddlerhood is this age where we're specifically dealing with a lot more complexity, and we're left with the question of like, what do I even do with this kid? And like I said at the beginning, the answer to this question is very loaded and there are so many ways to go about it. But at the end of the day, I think before we get more in depth with toddlers, the important thing to understand is to push nothing at all on them when it comes to learning or questions what to do with them. Push nothing on them at all, but at the same time, do everything you can. So like I said, it's a loaded, complex answer, and so that's a bit confusing, right? You're like, what do you mean? You're telling me to do nothing but do everything. What does that mean? And what I mean is there are do's and don'ts, okay? And so for the don'ts, we're not going to force the education on the toddler. I feel like a lot of times parents are looking for these man-made measures of success. They want it to be something where they can check it off of their list, and it simply just doesn't work that way in the brain of a toddler, especially when we're considering that they learn at different speeds. So one kid might be learning faster while the other one's not. So we have to remember that it's not a task list, something to check off. It's not something that we can just find some man-made measurement of what your toddler should be doing. That gets really complicated. And even when you have kids that are learning, you'll notice that like a kid learning to walk ranges anywhere from like 6 months to I think 2 years. That's a huge time gap because kids don't learn on the same speed. They're not learning on the same levels at all times. So we need to let go of those man-made ideas of how we're going to measure a child's growth and how they're learning and how all of that plays together. Don't sacrifice the joy of learning just so that you can check off your task list of what your child is learning, because then it becomes a forced thing, which is never good for that toddler age. They don't do well with that. And one, because like their attitudes, let's be real, toddlers don't force anything on a toddler. They hate it. But also because mentally it's just not fair to them. They're not ready to have things pushed on them. It needs to be at their speed. And the truth bomb at the end of the day with this is that I feel like a lot of times it boils down to parents giving in to feeling inadequate. Like they feel inadequate in the comparison game, right? So keeping up with the Joneses, the homeschooling Joneses down the street, their toddler's already playing piano, learning rocket science, and has a violin recital with the Siberian Orchestra next weekend, right? Like we fall victim a lot of times to the comparison game. That's something that we need to work on ourselves as the adults, something within ourselves that we need to work on to ensure we're not pushing our kids for the wrong reasons. That's just one example, but the point is, don't suffocate the fun of learning, the learning experience, and the speed that your child needs to go in order for you to have something tangible, something that you can reach to feel like you've met your objective as the adult. And I feel like that's a hard pill to swallow, but it's true. A lot of times we're pushing things that don't need to be pushed because we feel we need something tangible to show the achievements. Like we want measurable success. So with that being said, you're probably like, okay, that's a lot of what not to do. So what do I do? Misty, what do I do? And what I want you to do first and foremost is observe, observe, observe. You need to watch your kid and specifically toddler right now, but you need to watch that kid and let them take the lead, follow their lead. Let them show you what the environment should be. So toddlers are learning at all times through their environment. We need to create that learning enhancing environment that is on their level, on their speed. If you're willing to make those proper observations, your child will either directly or indirectly show you their interests, their development skills, their motor skills, all of it. They will show you these things. So my camera is dying, so I'm gonna throw some things at you and hope I can get it all before the camera dies. But let's talk about some examples of what I mean. So I have a toddler doing toddler things. She's throwing all the bedding off of the bed, making a mess, right? Throwing all the toys down, just grabbing whatever she can. She's on the top bunk and she is throwing everything that she can. Me as the parent could easily see them making a mess and wreaking havoc like they do. But truthfully, we need to stop and think, maybe they're learning about gravity. They're interested in why those things are dropping the way they do, and it's very fascinating. Let's talk about that. Let's get up on the bunk bed with them, drop those things, and let's talk about gravity. So I have a child that keeps singing and making loud noises, and it becomes distracting, right? Screeching sounds, these sounds that become annoying and distracting to us adults, right? But have we stopped and thought about why they're doing it, making those observations? Maybe they are understimulated and they're creating proper stimulation for their brain through sounds. And beyond that, let's take advantage of that. Now we know that their brain is stimulated by sound, right? So now we can create opportunities to work on music together, work on instruments together, right? They're showing you indirectly at the same time what they need right now to stimulate their brain. So once we've taken the time to stop and think of those things, not from the parent perspective of where they're just doing those toddler behaviors, and we start to look at it as they're exploring something new from their own brand new thoughts and their brand new ideas of what could be going on. And we would want to take their lead and now create that environment for them. So I'm going to create a learning environment and I'm going to let go. Now, when they're ready, they will join you in formal homeschooling, okay? We're not going to force it. Maybe they want to come up every now and then and join you at the table. Cool, let them. And when they're done, let them walk away. Creating that environment where you can let go and let them learn takes a lot of that pressure off of you as the parent to keep them entertained and busy and learning too. And that gives them the opportunity to explore the room, explore their environment, and learn from what you've set out for them to do. And so, like I said, the camera is dying, so I'm gonna stop there. This is what I wanted to get across today, is that we need to stop and think about why we're pushing education on them, or should we even be pushing it? How can we create an environment to help them learn? How can we observe them to figure out what they need to learn or what they're currently learning or loving? There's so many little things that we touched on this video, and I plan to make more in the future for you guys. So if you're interested in learning more about this topic, make sure that you hit the subscribe button for future videos, and the bell will tell you when I upload a new video every time so you know what's coming. And the like button lets me know that you found this video useful, and I hope you did. And if you did, make sure you hit that button down below, the like button, so that I know to make more videos like this in the future. That's a great way to see your feedback. But I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, I wish you the best with your toddler. May the odds be ever in your favor. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Have fun homeschooling. Bye.